Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Waterloo Mayor Dave Jaworski, and actually, it is a great day for our community thanks to the upcoming announcement by Kitchener-Conestoga MPP Mike Harris. Today is the culmination of a unique opportunity that has been carefully considered, and in typical Waterloo and Waterloo Region fashion, it combines the innovative spirit, a group of entrepreneurial, think outside the box people, and a truly remarkable idea that just needs some seed funding. And you would be right to say, hey, in Waterloo Region, people are starting new businesses every month, every week, every day. And that part is true. However, what is truly knock your socks off unique is that this concept isn't from a for-profit business. It's an idea, a dream really, a proven dream from our nonprofit sector, and one of the angel investors, so to speak, being the province of Ontario. And the word angel is very appropriate here, as this investment will be used to foster positive change in the lives of our fellow citizens on an ongoing basis. Helping the most vulnerable citizens in our community certainly falls in the category of angel-like support. And for that, I would like to thank MPP Harris for his behind the scenes, tireless efforts on this funding announcement. And in speaking to the community, this is not the finish line. This is the starting line. The province of Ontario is enabling change, doing the kickoff. We must all come together as a team to rally around the House of Friendship to make this such a great success that we know it can be, and one that we can all be proud of. I would also like to invite you to join me in being an ongoing donor of House of Friendship and other worthy charities in our community. Now, on with the show. I will turn it over to MPP and friend Mike Harris for today's exciting and compassionate announcement. Mike?
Well, thanks so much, Mayor Jaworski, for that warm welcome. And it's really exciting to be here this morning to be able to really fill in the community on what's happening. And I know there's been a lot of questions around House of Friendship and everything that's been going on over the last few months, and what a great way to start the new year here with this announcement. So I'd like to, of course, welcome Chair Redmond for joining us as well, and the Executive Director of House of Friendship, John Neufeld, and we'll hear from them both a little bit later. It's great to, of course, be here to put a spotlight on all the work that House of Friendship does in our community. And this great organization has been part of Waterloo Region and quite frankly, an institution here since 1939. What started out as a storefront mission to feed the hungry on King Street, downtown Kitchener, has grown to provide support to thousands of vulnerable residents in our community. House of Friendship is a charitable social service agency that delivers addiction treatment, food, housing, and community resources throughout Waterloo Region. We are here today to talk specifically about House of Friendship ShelterCare program. This program offers overnight wraparound care and accommodations for individuals struggling with homelessness, and has a proven track record of getting people the assistance they need when they need it most. And I'm extremely pleased to announce that the Ontario government is providing the House of Friendship with $8.5 million in capital funding. This funding is being delivered through the Social Services Relief Program and will be used to help House of Friendship purchase and convert a former hotel into a 100-bed emergency housing center that is expected to open by spring of this year. Located at 190 Weber Street North, future residents will have access to meals and wraparound healthcare services, including mental health and addictions treatment. The location will be close to public transportation, schools, and job opportunities. When I heard that there was an opportunity to assist House of Friendship in continuing to provide this crucial program in our community, I had to get involved. Obtaining this funding has been an intense labor, which brought together the House of Friendship team and myself. We worked to find a long-term solution for the ShelterCare program. Making my community a better place for everyone is one of the main reasons I got involved in politics. So I can't stress enough how very pleased I am that we're able to be here today, all together for today's funding announcement. In addition, I want to sincerely thank the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Steve Clark, for his support in championing this vital community initiative. This $8.5 million will ensure that individuals who may need to rely on the ShelterCare program can access it for years to come. I know it's hard for many of us to imagine a situation where someone would suddenly find themselves at risk of homelessness, but we all know that life can throw us a curveball at any time. So when the unthinkable happens, House of Friendship is there to lend a helping hand. The ShelterCare program is known for providing vital assistance so that individuals who are struggling can access care, accommodation, wraparound supports, and get their lives and goals back on track. The testimonials and track record of the ShelterCare program speaks for itself, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about how this funding will positively impact the community here in Waterloo. I want to thank the directors and staff at House of Friendship for their incredible work towards serving our communities. I'm truly awed and humbled by the dedication to service to all of those in their times of greatest need. Without further delay, I'd like to invite Regional Chair Karen Redmond to speak more about what this funding means for the region of Waterloo. Thank you everyone for being here.
Mike, thanks so much. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today as we announce the funding from the province of Ontario for the House of Friendship. Along with MPP Harris, the Minister in Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the House of Friendship, and the City of Waterloo, we are excited to share this news that more housing supports are coming to Waterloo region. And I really want to give a shout out to all of my colleagues who are joining us virtually on this announcement. This has the full support of the Region of Waterloo Council. This location will provide temporary accommodations for some of our community's most vulnerable. They have access to 24/7 care and staffing, as well as wraparound housing and medical supports on site. This includes the supports, tools, and resources to find and maintain permanent housing. At the Region of Waterloo, we believe that communities thrive when everyone has a place to call home. We are deeply committed to realizing our vision of a home for everyone in Waterloo region. The pandemic continues to show us that permanent housing for all Waterloo region residents is a way to keep our community safe and to keep it healthy, which is why initiatives like this one are so important. We also know that the need for housing is great. It is creative solutions like the House of Friendship's ShelterCare model that help us as a community address this need. Over the last year, emergency shelters and housing staff have supported more than 430 people to transition from the experience of homelessness to permanent housing. Of those, 152 were experiencing chronic homelessness. I want to thank MPP Harris and the provincial government for continuing to invest in our community. We look forward to continuing our work in ensuring that people are housed as we address this need in our community. This issue is more than about numbers, and numbers are important and governments love to track them, but it's also about people. And we can never lose that focus on the first person singular impact that these programs have. We'll now view a video that will outline some of these personal journeys from the participants. And this will be followed by comments by John Neufeld, the Executive Director of the House of Friendship. And John, a shout out to you and your team for being creative and finding new solutions in the midst of a pandemic. You had this vision for a long time, but the pandemic put you in hyperspeed, and we're leaning into those gains. So what a wonderful day, and I'll turn it over to the video and then to you. Can everyone else hear the audio? I'm not hearing it.
I was able to utilize this.
Apologies, we'll start again there.
If you had to stay on the streets long term, where do you think you'd be right now?
I might be dead. I definitely wouldn't be where I am today. And I'm not exaggerating. When I first went down to the medical clinic, I was able to meet Gail Parker, and I got a new nurse practitioner, and I was able to meet all of my medical needs right there at the hotel. That's when I knew that this was different. I was able to utilize the system as much as I possibly could and get the helps and supports that I needed. I'd still be homeless if it weren't for the great work of Lutherwood and House of Friendship and all the other organizations that gathered together. I wouldn't have gotten housing with the region. I wouldn't have gone to treatment for alcohol abuse or alcohol dependence, and I wouldn't be where I am today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Imagine you've just received a cancer diagnosis and you show up at the cancer treatment center and you're given a room, given a bed, given some meals, but you don't get access to chemo or radiation treatment. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But that's sort of how we've been responding to homelessness for years. And so the question is, how can we expect homelessness to improve in our community if we don't address the underlying health issues? And it was that question that planted the seeds of the vision we now refer to as ShelterCare. Thankfully, at the beginning of the pandemic, as Chair Redmond pointed out, March 2020, when we moved our shelter to the Radisson Hotel, we were joined by a group of rebels from the Inner City Health Alliance, from community partners, health professionals who are willing to lean in and jump in with us and try to innovate and pilot this new model. 6-7 months later, as we started looking at the data, we were shocked at the outcomes. We had a record number of people being housed and not returning. We had a record number of people feeling better, both physically in their health, getting treatment for their addiction and mental health, just as Colin shared in his video. And we had a dramatic decrease in the use of emergency medical services like ambulance and police. We shared the model and the outcomes with MPP Harris, and he got it immediately, intuitively, and became a big champion of ShelterCare. Fast forward a year later, and it's the fall of 2021. I have to say it's probably one of the lowest points we've ever experienced at House of Friendship. We were running out of time at the Guelph Hotel. We had looked at countless different locations and had the door closed in on us. And we were reminded regularly of the high cost of serving the unwell and the unwanted. So I sent an SOS email on a Sunday afternoon at 12:48 to MPP Harris. I don't think the clock had hit 12:50 before my phone was ringing, and it was MPP Harris. He listened. He said, ShelterCare is too important, John. We can't lose the gains that we've made. Let me see what I can do. And so this morning, I want to say a heartfelt thank you to MPP Harris for your tireless work and your colleagues for securing this funding. So I want to thank Minister Clark and the team at the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Minister Bethlyn Falvey, and Minister Sarkaria for all the work that has been done to get us to today. I want to thank our provincial government for this investment in championing ShelterCare model that will hopefully not only impact people here in Waterloo region, but hopefully across this great province. Mayor Dave and Tim Anderson and the City of Waterloo team, you've been exceptional. Thank you for all the work in the background to making sure that this location will be a success in your great city. Chair Redmond, Bruce Lochner, and the regional team, I can't say enough. Thank you enough for the support you've also given us, not just for the ShelterCare model, but for the support over the decades that we've worked together in addressing homelessness in this community. Lastly, I want to thank our team and the individuals serving across the shelter system here in Waterloo region and all of our community partners. Serving the unwell and the unwanted can be thankless work. And yet each and every day you show up with your care and compassion. And that is what has inspired everyone in the room here today to ensure that we have a dignified environment that can provide hope and continue this really important work. So on behalf of the individuals whose lives will be changed, saved, and given the opportunity for a better, healthier, and housed future, I want to thank everyone for joining us today.
That's great. Thank you, John. I believe we'll open it up to any questions at this point.
We have a question coming in from CTV Kitchener.
Hey everybody, thanks for the great presentation so far. This is Jeff Pickle from CTV Kitchener, as mentioned. Thanks. I want to first start asking about this might be a question for John. You mentioned the value in having a new facility and you used the word dignified space. And maybe just comment on why it's important to have not just a space and a bed, but something that, up until very recently was a functioning hotel and a place that people can take pride in, and what value there is in that aspect of getting a place, as you said, that allows more dignity than possibly others in the past.
Jeff, great question. What I would say is the buildings that we provide our services in are a reflection of what we truly believe, or how we feel about the people we serve in those buildings. So I'm heartened when I go in this community and I see beautiful centers where people can get cancer treatment and get a lot of health issues. I think dignified environments speak a lot to the self-worth. And I think we can all appreciate that the individuals who are requiring our services are at the lowest point in their life, have been told their whole life that they don't fit in, they don't matter, and they're a burden. And so when they walk through an environment that is warm, that is welcoming, that is dignified, it signals something really deeply important and can be the beginning of an important pathway to getting better for them.
Great. Was there a follow-up question?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess along the similar lines, you mentioned a kind of a full change in the, I guess, way that ShelterCare is operating, and I think it kind of resonates back to that concept of wraparound services that we hear a lot. Could you maybe get into a little bit more detail about what, other than the shelter space and a bed, what else is kind of being offered, and what you've noticed over this past year that has the most impact when it comes to those wraparound services and what you're able to provide?
Thanks, Jeff. It's a number of pieces. So one, just basic physical health, right? Again, when you're on the street, you don't feel like you're worthy of anyone's help, and you tough it out. And there's low levels of trust because authority has let you down, or you've been mistreated. And so all of a sudden, when you connect with a health practitioner and can get a physical exam for the first time, and can get maybe a condition that's chronic for you that you've been living with addressed. So there's physical health. We've got people addressing the mental health, people addressing addictions. We had housing workers on site that could start building those relationships of trust and talk about different housing options. And Jeff, I think we could creatively look at other things. We've had physiotherapy interested in adding. And so I think when we have this kind of location, it opens up a lot more possibilities. I think we started small and really basic, like physical health, mental health, addictions, but I think we can add some other things. And so that's the really exciting part of this model that keeps evolving.
Thanks, John.
Great. Now we will go over to a question from Chris at the Waterloo Regional Record.
There, thanks very much. This question again is for John. Can you speak a little bit about how it will be determined who will get to move into the space once it's built?
Yeah, Chris, we work together. It's across the Waterloo region. There's a shelter system with our partners. So we work closely with each other and to see who would fit best where. But obviously, if someone is experiencing homelessness, we need to provide a bed for them. And so we will do that.
If I follow up, if I may, can you speak? I'm not sure if this question would be best for John or for someone else, but I'm wondering how the shelter will be funded long term. I understand that the $8.5 million is seed money. So what happens after that?
Chair Redmond might be better suited to answer that.
I'll start, but I have much smarter people on the line, and I think we have housing staff. I think I saw Chris McAvoy on. I don't know if Ryan Petitpierre is on. Just to say that there will be ongoing funding support through the region. So it's not just this initial amount, but it will be enough to have operational costs covered as well as any financial obligations for the acquisition of the facility. I don't know. Chris McAvoy, are you on? Can you add something?
Can you hear me okay? Sometimes my microphone doesn't work so well. Excellent. I would just echo your statements, Chair Redmond, in that regional staff are working very closely with House of Friendship leadership to structure ongoing operational and staffing agreements. And so those conversations are in the works to ensure ongoing operational funds to ensure the staffing and operations of this the ShelterCare program.
Great. And now we do have a question from Carmen from CBC. Her microphone's not working, so I will communicate it for her. Wondering if the hotel on 190 Weber is the Comfort Inn Hotel, and how many people will the facility be able to support?
I can answer that. Yes, it is the former Comfort Inn in Waterloo, and it will be for 100 individuals.
Great, thank you. And she is just typing a follow-up question here. How will the space be used to support the people staying there?
Good morning, Carmen. If I'm understanding your question correctly, we will be doing some extensive some construction to change some of the spaces around, so that's not just rooms, that we have treatment rooms in there, some offices, spaces for the individuals to gather. So I think the hotel is a ideal kind of building because it's built for that, but we will have to do some modifications. And so that is what is going to delay our opening there, is because it will take some time to make those changes. Hope I've got the spirit of your question, but maybe there's a follow-up to that.
No, she said yes. Thank you very much. Great. And now we will be moving on to a question from Adrian at Community Edition Waterloo.
Hi, everyone. Yes, this question is for John. I just wanted to ask, so as I'm sure everyone is aware, on November 27th last year, there was a homelessness camp that was dismantled. And that sparked a protest from the community because a lot of people were concerned that their fellow citizens were being evicted, essentially from a temporary housing. So how do you think this project will help prevent that for those who are concerned?
Adrian, we had made an agreement before we started this call that Chair Redmond would answer all the difficult questions, but I guess I'll try. Adrian, this project, ShelterCare is not a silver bullet. It's not going to guarantee that it will prevent things like that. Homelessness is a challenge, not just in our community, it's across every community. And I could tell you from being in this field for quite some time, it has changed dramatically over, I would say, particularly the last 5 years. It's become far more challenging for a number of factors. And the reality is that I think the communities that respond creatively and innovatively will never fully solve it, but they will at least move forward and try to serve more and more people in a more helpful way. And I think that's what we're trying to do here. But the complexity of this and all the dynamics with it are not easily solved. What I'm incredibly proud of in this region is that we keep trying different things, and that we're encouraged to do that. And we're given the resources, from provincial government, our local government support municipally to try these things. And they're not perfect solutions. And sometimes we get it right and sometimes we don't. But we need to keep moving forward and trying to understand. But I can tell you, for those of us who are in this field and doing this work day in and day out, it's really hard to keep up and try to understand the changes. The landscape has changed. And I can tell you that even in my decade of serving at House of Friendship, from the challenges we had 10 years ago to the challenges we have today are just so dramatically different and so much more challenging. And it's easy to point fingers, and it's easy to, desire a simple solution, and it just doesn't work like that. It's a lot of commitments, a lot of dedication by a lot of different people to figure it out. And so I'm just really proud that our community continues to do these kinds of things.
And not that I have a whole lot to add to John's answer, but just to reiterate his earlier comment that housing in the shelter system is a system throughout the region. And we know that there is need throughout the region. And we also know that there's a continuum. And there are people living homeless. There are people that are looking for shelter spaces. Our value statement as a region has always been that we are housing first, and that will always be our ultimate goal, to build more affordable housing, more supportive housing, to allow people to move along that continuum, to live their best life and be integrated into society in a way that is beneficial to them and to society. And that's the balance that we're always striving for, is what is in the best interest of individuals and the greater community, so that people are safe, feel safe, and have a healthier way of life.
All right. Thank you very much, Chair Redmond, and also John, for your answers. Thank you.
Great. We have another question again at CTV Kitchener.
Thank you. Yeah, just one additional question here, and I hope not to stray too far away from the topic at hand, but I want to bring in, the pandemic and COVID into this a little bit. John, maybe you could answer this one. Wondering about how cold weather and being with the winter time and more people being indoors affects the shelter system. If you can give us any idea of kind of what's happening right now with that situation, and if there's any added strain, I guess, on the shelter system as a whole right now due to the cold weather and more people being indoors.
Thanks, Jeff. A couple of things. So one, homelessness is not a climate issue. We particularly, I think, pay attention to homelessness a bit more in the winter, because it's like, oh my goodness, could you imagine being outside? But homelessness happens all year long. We just tend to put a greater focus on it during the winter. So I just want to point that out for whatever that's worth. Secondly, yes, the pandemic, we don't want to blame everything on the pandemic, because these issues we had these challenges pre-pandemic. I just want to be clear. I think they just got exacerbated and they got highlighted more, and we became more aware during the pandemic. And the pandemic gave us the opportunity to sort of experiment, innovate, try different things. Yes, the colder weather does put greater challenges on the shelter system, and the shelter system is under greater duress, obviously, because of the particular Omicron right now and the outbreaks, I think every system is impacted these days, and we're not by any means spared from that either. So we continue to work together as a shelter system with the region's help to try to respond, to do what we can, but it is an incredibly challenging time right now.
Great, thanks. Oh, just additionally, I'm not sure if it was addressed in any of those previous questions. You mentioned some work needed to be done, but do you have a kind of timeline for when things hope to be operational?
I'd be a fool to give a timeline in today's world of supply chain issues, construction. I think any of you who've tried to do any home renovations will know. So, I mean, we've been working with architects and designer for a little while to see what we can do, Jeff. And as soon as we can get some more definitive timelines, we will definitely provide those updates.
You're no fool, John. Thanks.
And now we have another question from Justine at the Woolwich Observer.
Hello. I know, John, last time we talked, you said you had about 70 or 80 men who are being displaced, and now it seems like there's 400 rooms, maybe less. So I'm just wondering if you've seen like a sharp rise in men accessing your services lately?
Sorry, Justine, I'm not totally following your question. So yes, we did have around 70 at the Guelph Hotel when we had to close there. 26 of them came to our old shelter on Charles Street in Kitchener. Some went to the other shelters, and then some moved on to housing or moved in with family. So that's what happened to those 70. I'm just not sure what your question though is.
So at the new facility, you said it has 400 rooms. So I'm just wondering if you've seen more people accessing services, if you're preparing for that.
Yeah, so sorry, I think you heard the number 400 from a regional perspective across the shelter system. That's probably how many beds there are per night available across all the shelters. So we're not operating this facility as Mayor Dave astutely, I think, outlined at the beginning. This is just the starting line today. We just got the location. We have lots of work. So we're not operating ShelterCare at this point. There are other overflow spaces being run by our partners, by the region, that are looking after the individuals today.
Just on that note, I think you're targeting about 100 rooms at the new facility, right, John?
100 individuals, yeah.
Thank you.
Great. And we have a question from Doug Coxon.
Morning. Yeah, I know it's been said, rightly or wrongly, that the city of Cambridge is sharing a disproportionate burden in terms of the homeless population. Is this an effort to address that? Will there be an equal distribution, or will this serve populations in Kitchener-Waterloo specifically?
So, Doug, I think that's one of the hard questions that John offered me to answer. And again, it's a system region-wide response, and I'm going to put Chris McAvoy back on the spot to talk about our response to overflow, as well as isolation for COVID positive people who are experiencing homelessness.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks, Chair Redmond. So as was previously discussed and mentioned a few different times, our community and emergency shelter system does operate pan-regional and have pan-regional responses. As we know, the experience of homelessness is quite fluid across the three major cities and 4 rural townships in Waterloo region. So in the summer and very early fall, we work closely with emergency shelters and other providers, community partners to establish winter and fall overflow strategies and plans. And so that includes a number of temporary emergency shelters throughout Waterloo region in different communities to be able to expand to what we often see as the increased need and demand in the fall and winter months. That's very similar to our isolation strategy as well. wanting to have as many isolation spots as available throughout the pandemic. And again, an accordion kind of model to be able to adaptively respond to increases in shelter spaces and increases in isolation spaces as the different waves have occurred throughout the pandemic. So we're working very closely with our public health partners, community agencies, community health partners to establish different IPAC protocols on site. And so IPAC would be the infection prevention and control measures that public health and other health partners require of congregate settings that emergency shelters often operate within. And so having isolation spaces on site within emergency shelters wherever possible, and where that's not possible, having separate isolation facilities dedicated for individuals experiencing homelessness so that they can not only recover from their experience of homelessness and be supported with a housing plan to be able to move on to safe and permanent affordable housing, but also help recover from their COVID experience and be able to isolate in a way that protects the larger community as well, not only amongst emergency shelter participants and staff, but the greater community. So at all times, our community and emergency shelter system operates exactly as a collaborative system, responding in a number of ways throughout Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, and the townships.
Maybe I'd like to weigh in a bit here as well. I think a good philosophy that I have, if somebody is unsheltered and is afflicted by homelessness and has no address, I'm their mayor, Barry's their mayor, Catherine's their mayor, everybody's their mayor. If we need to help everyone and we need to do whatever is possible, and if we can get funding, thankfully, from the provincial government as we have today, and we can choose an excellent site as House of Friendship does, and we can enable the top talent at the House of Friendship to do their jobs, and the board of directors as well to make wise decisions, that's a great day. And so, in terms of helping our fellow human being and getting on the right path, I think House of Friendship is the way to go, and location is whatever we can do to make it the best possible.
And those seem to be all of the questions. Just a final call for anyone else. Oh, we do have one more coming in from Chris again. Go ahead, Chris.
Just a clarification in case I missed it. Is it known yet if this shelter is for adults specifically or for men specifically or youth, or has that been determined yet?
Yes, at this time, it's specifically for adult men, Chris.
Okay, thank you.
And that looks to be the end of our questions.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Really excited to deliver this news and see where we go. And just once again, thank you, John, and your team for the tireless work that has gone into this project over the last few years, and really looking forward to seeing the fantastic results for the community. Thanks everyone for joining us today.
Great day. Shout out to Mayor Jaworski and his area municipality and all the other ones that have leaned into this to find solutions.